You're watching Next Pitch, the student athlete playbook for parents raising tomorrow's athletes.
Anthony Leverett here, host of the Next Pitch podcast, and on behalf of my Emmy award-winning producer, Jason Cardona, welcome to the show. Just some housekeeping at the beginning here. Reminder that this feed will stay the same with the Next Pitch podcast, but the weekly Sports DNA with Dusty and Anthony, you need to follow that on a different podcast. We are not releasing that on this feed. You'll need to follow that on its own feed, but you can find that on Dusty and Anthony on where all your podcasts are. Today, part 2 of my interview with Matt Zosel. Matt Zosel is the head men's basketball coach at Southern Oregon University. He is a former 3-sport college athlete and Army Ranger and Secret Service member for prior to getting into coaching. Remarkable story that we covered in the previous episode. And today we get into his journey through coaching, dive into some youth sports stuff, recruiting advice for parents and kids, and talk about small college athletics versus big time athletics and kind of the difference between the two of them. Matt is a remarkable guy, one of the smartest dudes I've ever met in my entire life. And I really enjoyed it. He's in the middle of his season right now, so really appreciate him taking the time to do this. Hope you enjoy this episode as much as I do. Matt Zosel, welcome in. Part 2 of our interview. I really appreciate you doing this. I know you are right in the thick of the season. For those people who don't know, the OIT, SOU, Southern Oregon University, Oregon Institute of Technology rivalry is it's one of the more non-publicized great rivalries in all of college. But some of my favorite memories are from that rivalry when I coached there. And I know you're just coming off a loss. We don't have to talk about it, but I know how that feels. I've been there. I really appreciate you taking the time to do this, man. Tough time of the year for coaches.
Oh, absolutely. But, I always preach to our guys, not too high, not too low. And I've really loved what Kurt Signetti said about not affected by success, not affected by failure. I've probably used that 100 times since hearing him say it. And, got to model it. Got to model it.
It's really easy to say and tell your guys to do stuff. It's really hard to live it yourself in the middle of the grind, man. That's one of the big challenges of coaching.
For sure. You just want to sit in your office and feel sorry for yourself and not interact with anybody and try to get ready for the next one. But that's not what we do.
No, it's not. And it's one of those, this isn't on my list of things to talk about today, but it's that part of leadership that's really hard, right? Like that there's leadership by example of how you show up through the toughest of times. And you tell your kids, hey, we're no matter what, up 10, down 10, first game, last game, most important possession, meaningless possession in the preseason. We're going to try to be the same through all of it, right? And then you lose and you show up and you're just this crazy. Your kids feel that and know it. And they're like, who the hell is this guy? And what is he telling us? You got to make sure that you live by what you're preaching.
Absolutely. We hammer the Army definition of leadership at those guys because it's always been the best one I've ever heard.
Yeah, let me hear it.
That's providing purpose, direction, and motivation to a group of individuals in order to accomplish a mission. And I don't think there's
Can you say that again?
So it's providing purpose, direction, and then motivation to a group of individuals in order to execute a mission. And that's the motivation part. If you're a phony, you can provide the best purpose and the best direction, but they're gonna lose motivation fast.
And you just came off. Tell your story you told me off the air before we started here about you don't normally do this, and for coaches out there, the ability to do these things every once in a while is what makes them impactful. Tell the story that you just told me about what you guys did after the game the other night.
Oh, and I hate telling this story because it's so the antithesis of what I do and what I coach and how I do things. But um, we just you just gotta walk that tightrope between um, having enough discipline and enforcing your standards, and then keeping the motivation and the joy of the game high. And I always err on the joy side usually, but the other night we just wore out my assistants. We stayed in the office till 3 a.m. The guys were coming in for film at 6 a.m. So I just laid down on my office floor for a couple hours, and now I got a little cold because of it. So don't not sure this is advice I wanted to give to anybody.
No, I
But
don't think it's advice.
that's how it went down. But it's just the schedule's so cramped. We played last weekend, we played a Tuesday, and then we got a game coming up, right away. It's just not much time to get everything done you want to get done.
It's one of those things you can't do it very often and staying level is what you want to do, but every now and again providing a little different type of motivation, accountability. You can be a psycho every once in a while. If you show up as a psycho all the time, they're going to tune you out, and it's not going to be a message that is well received over the long haul.
For sure. And obviously, if you've built a lot of equity and people know you really care and people know you really like them and respect them, they see it more as hey, this has to be done. Like, this
Yeah.
has to be done. This is the price we're paying, and we're going to do it less than, like, the guys have been around me long enough to know I'm not emotional. I do not knee jerk. I do not say things crazy in the heat of the moment. So, and truth of the matter is, I tried to do it later, but everybody had class. And so normally I just let guys slide on it and, like, okay, well, come in and get it with me individually. And so that was like, okay, the only time it sounds like we can do this is 6 a.m. And so that it was even born out of that. It wasn't born out of like, hey, I want to punish you guys by getting you up early after a long road trip.
But the natural consequence of that is you're now sick. So
Yeah, you got to
you're
sleep.
the one that's paying for it the most. They went home and took a nap.
You did.
All right, man. Well, we went in the first interview, went through your growing up, your history. Obviously spent time in the Rangers, and just a remarkable journey. Let's just kind of briefly go through your background again, all the way up until you got your first coaching job. Just quickly, kind of, for people who didn't listen to the first show, kind of give us a brief background.
Sure. So graduated from Southern Oregon University, and right after the 2002-2003 season, had planned to get into coaching. Spur of the moment, ended up going in the military. Spur of the moment, ended up going to selection for 75th Ranger Regiment. Spent 8 years, well, 8 years in the military, but probably 6 years at 75th and STB, and then worked a couple years for the State Department. Went through a divorce and decided I was gonna get back into was gonna get into what I'd always wanted to do, and that was college coaching.
So I think the journey for coaches is fascinating, right? Like, it's you look at most people's resume look like a roadmap. So it's never just a straight line to where you want to get to. It can take you all over the place. So you started at what level? What level did you begin at? I think you said, when in our last conversation, it was the Division III level, correct? In the Midwest?
Yeah, I started out at the Division III level. I got an opportunity to coach at McMurray College in Jacksonville, Illinois, for a guy, Todd Creel, who was an awesome first coach to work for. And I just got so lucky, just that was the break-in spot.
And then, how did you end up on the West Coast? How did that whole get back to being at Lane Community College? I know there was a stop in between at the University of Oregon. Kind of, how did that evolve?
Yeah, like I said, I was fortunate. I stepped into a program with a good coach who had a good roster of talent, and we won our conference. And I was doing what small college coaching stipends. Like they're not much. So I'd been kind of burned through savings, and we won the conference championship, and then another local school at a lot better Division III league hired me as a full-time assistant. So I worked as a full-time assistant there. They had been perennially last, and so we had a little success that got the notice of the right person, and Oregon was at the right time where they just Coach Altman had wanted an older graduate assistant, and so just through a fluky sort of connection, I ended up getting the opportunity to go out and be the GA at Oregon for the Elite Eight, and then the following year the Final Four runs.
So then you went and did a prep school AAU thing for a short period of time, and then ended up back at Lane Community College as an assistant first, right? And then the head coach?
Yes.
Yeah. And then got the job down at Southern Oregon University, where you are now, doing a hell of a job down there. I want to talk about sort of the difference in levels. There are so many levels out there that have college basketball, and a lot of it is really good college basketball. Like they're different, but it's really good players playing. What do you see as the biggest difference between, first of all, JUCO and the small college level, NAI Division II, and I know D3 is its own kind of animal. What do you see as the biggest difference between those levels?
Well, I mean, quickly, the analogy that pops to my head is just like the career advice I give all of our guys, which is like, basketball is a lot like podcasting. Are there people that make a ton of money podcasting? Yes. Are there many? No.
No.
And there's a lot of really talented ones you've never heard of. And not only do you need to be, I mean, like playing is a little different. Getting to the top level is much more, a meritocracy. And not saying that coaching isn't, but there's more luck involved in getting that ticket coaching than there is, playing. But there's still luck in playing too, and getting the right person seeing you and the right fit, and getting to stick around. So I think the biggest difference in levels, I mean, from a coaching standpoint, is it's just such a massive production at that level. There's so many people at the University of Oregon on payroll with very specialized jobs. Um, and I sometimes I have been away from it for so long. I'm like, I don't even know what I would do with all those people. Like, what would I do if I had, like
You'd figure it out.
I had a $10,000 stipend, and my
Trust me,
assistant
you'd figure
substitute
it out.
teaches. My assistant substitute teaches, and then I've got a 20-year-old student assistant, and so he's taking classes. So a lot of times it's, I do the laundry, and so it's not a matter of like, I don't even know who does the laundry. I tell so and so, and then he tells so and so, and then it gets down to the managers who get it done. It's literally the to-do list probably has to be covered completely with me.
You can trust me on this. If you went from Southern Oregon University to Division I and then you had all those resources, you would figure out what to do with all those resources. It was one of the most shocking things for me, was going from that level to going to the University of Utah of, I don't have to do the laundry. This is fantastic. I don't need to bring the water upstairs for a practice. I'm never going to tape another ankle again. This is amazing. It is those are the things that you don't see that are and there's way more to it than that. But
you can just go on and on and on. I mean, from we're down an accountant here, so when we do the receipts, it's not like we turn our receipts into somebody. We literally are going in and doing the accounting. And anybody spending your time around me knows I'm not an accountant. I'm not a money guy. I don't care. I don't. So it's been learning a whole new skill set that takes me way longer than it should. That I'm like, this is not in the job description, but you do it because you love the rest of it.
That being said, it's still an amazing experience, and I think some of my best, I got to coach collegiately for 18 years and then a year over in Japan, and 10 of them were at the small college level. And I loved every second of it. I coached JUCO, D3, and then NAI down at Southern Oregon, where you are. And it's some of the best memories I've ever had. And some of the best basketball games I've ever been a part of happened in some of those small gyms across the Northwest. And then the national tournament at that time was in Branson, Missouri. And some of those games and some of those experiences are remarkable. What is kind of the beauty of small college athletics versus the big time Division I athletics? Like there is something really cool about your level.
Yeah, I think it's the biggest difference is it does like the values are a little different. Like, I get there's a business aspect of it at the University of Oregon level, and I'm not saying that in a negative way. I'm saying it in just a way, in a positive way.
It
When I
just
was,
is.
yeah, when I was there, my grad program was a master's in nonprofit management, and so they talked about how much, and later on I kept contact with everybody, but how much COVID hurt the nonprofits because their biggest fundraiser was selling their parking lots for the Duck games. And so when you're talking about that sort of income generation and that many people depending on, the revenue, it does create a different set of values for a coach. And, we don't have the same pressures. So our values can be a little, and obviously winning is super important, but I would say it's not like the most important thing. Like we can still recruit the best people and, focus on, growing them and winning, hopefully.
All doing it at the same time, right? Like it's the development
Yeah.
of young people and the byproduct of that, of getting those good young people and developing them is winning. Like that's the byproduct
Yeah,
of all the good things that you do.
absolutely.
So speaking of recruiting, obviously Division I athletics, is just it's a recruiting bonanza, right? That's all it is, the lifeblood of every program, and it's lifeblood of the small college programs too, but it's done in a bit different way. What is, for a kid who's in high school that's a good player at a small school that hasn't had a chance to play on the AAU circuit or played on a team that didn't have a bunch of dudes on it, so wasn't being watched by a bunch of college coaches, what is the best path for junior in high school that knows they're not going to be Division I because they're not being recruited Division I? What is the best path for them to be seen by someone like you and get their name, what they're able to do out in front of you?
Yeah, a great question. Honestly, it's like the first thing we address with all of our recruits is I kind of explain everything you think you know about recruiting. That's not how I see it. Here's how I see it.
Yeah.
And so the first thing is that people have to realize like, and the recruiting services have made it very tough for us, because our emails inboxes get flooded with people that will have no interest in going to Southern Oregon, and we have no interest in having them. So then when you get 60, 75 of those a day, you end up just filtering them all out, and you do miss the more earnest kids, because they're just blanketing. Um, so with that being said, I'd take email kind of off the table right away. I mean, you still have to try, and I honestly would rather, and this is again, I'm giving terrible advice, but I would rather open up I mean, if I get an email and the kid's misspelled a couple words and maybe misspelled my last name, I would rather get that than a polished 6'2" versatile combo guard. That was clearly written by AI or written by a recruiter. Like the kid that misspelled them, like this dude actually wrote me. He actually
Yeah.
knows Southern Oregon. I'm gonna open it up. He didn't just send a million of these out. Like I would really honestly rather have that. And we'll work on the spelling when you get here and the professionalism when you get here. But at least I know that you're really sent it, at least I
Yeah.
know that. And so I think for kids, the first thing you got to realize too is that it is so much, so such a small, piece of the puzzle is even how much we like you as a player. We have financial constraints. We have like, hey, your roster's got to be this much Oregon. You know, I'm super sensitive to that, and I think coming from the Division III level and growing up the way I grew up, I never want anybody to be in a financially bad situation to play small college. And I also coach in a league where I have so much respect for all the other coaches that I'm not going to tell them like, Southern Oregon, we're just so much different, so much better than Oregon Tech. I mean, I'll tell them right away, if you're going to be an X-ray technician, you need to go to Oregon Tech. It's way smarter, And so knowing what the school and how the fit is, I'd say the next piece is, excuse me, I'd say the next piece is just getting in front of them, getting in front of a coach in person. Like our recruiting, we've really changed how we do it. It's not what people think it is. We don't go out and look at random people. Like we have a huge call net of people I know and I trust, and we get names from them. We try to see them specifically. We try to get them. We try to see them in our gym playing with our players, and see how they fit. And then we try to know if the off court stuff even fits. And that's how our process works. But I think the biggest thing is, getting in front of coaches live. And the best way to do that's open gyms and wearing them out about, hey, coach, I know you don't have enough players this spring and summer. Like, I'd love to come in and play with you. Like, those have been my favorite guys. Like a local guy at Lane that I like didn't think was good enough, and then he comes in and plays open gym, and I'm like, this kid's good enough, and I like him a lot.
And this time of year, it's not too late, right? For each school might have their own process that they go through. And I know you signed a couple guys, or 3 guys, I think you said, early in the early signing period, but that's not the norm for small college basketball. Small college basketball recruiting typically happens after the D1s are done with that early signing period, and kids then they now know they're for sure they're not Division 1, they're a college basketball player. That's that opportunity window from that early signing period in November through the end of their senior year.
Yeah, definitely. And then the only thing that pops into my head when you say that is how little we all know about recruiting right now. Like, it is changing so much, and the
Yeah.
landscape is changing so fast. And NIL doesn't affect us, but the ramifications and the downstream effects do affect us. And I don't think any coach right now that you talk to at any level is like, yeah, our recruiting's dialed. Everybody's like, we're trying this and we like it and we hope it works, but man, we're ready to adapt if it's not working. And so we've seen a real noticeable shift in the quality of high school players that just have nothing. And we've noticed that like that message is getting through to them, and we noticed that the high school kids are committing way earlier than what they used to be, because that word has kind of gotten out that like, hey, we're going to go to the portal. We might even try to get a pro that still has eligibility. Like, we're going to try to do everything we can besides take an 18-year-old. And so, it's like we benefit from that downstream effect. Like, I talk to really, really good kids that are like, I don't have anything. Like, nobody's talking to me. So
It's a remarkable. One thing I get asked from parents all the time, and did when I was coaching too, is, can I send you my highlight video? And my immediate answer was, no, I don't want to see your highlight video. Anyone can make a highlight video. I want to see a full game. So if you're going to send me a link and I'm going to watch it, send me your best game. I don't care. The best full game that you've ever played, send that to me so I can watch the game. Do you want to see highlight videos? And do you think most coaches at the small college level want to see a highlight video, or do we want to see you play in a full game, seeing how you can interact on that floor?
yeah, I think full game and like is best, and then or is better, and then in person is best.
Yeah.
But I think highlight films have hurt kids with
Uh,
me more than it's helped them. And I know college coaches, we all get trashed on for wanting to keep the game so simple, but you watch as many hours of film as we do, and it's like, I don't really want to see that hard shot over and over again. Like, I,
the
I
music.
really, I want to see boring, solid, smart plays for
Yeah.
2 minutes,
Yeah.
and nobody does that on a highlight film.
No.
Like, yeah, it just wouldn't be like quick release, catch and shoot threes, and then you don't know the defensive level. It's like,
Yeah.
well, most of the guys that shoot the ball that well probably can't defend for us. So, yeah, they hurt you more than they help you sometimes. With the exception being like really good examples of athleticism and motor, and IQ. Like but those are hard things to show sometimes on a highlight film,
Yeah.
and so I think sometimes those can be really helpful. And again, every coach is different.
The only time I wanted to see a highlight video was from a post player that was at a small school that never got post catches and might only get 10 post touches in an entire season, and only had the ability to show their footwork and how they did a move maybe 10 times. And you're not going to be able to find that in a game. So that would be kind of the only time that I would want to see a highlight video of a kid is in a very, very specialized situation. The rest of the time, they went straight to the trash.
Yeah, agreed.
So, advice for parents as they're navigating this recruiting process. Like, is there, you got a dad, mom, family with a kid that's a junior, not, wanted to be a Division I player, but now they're not, right? Like they know they're not, but they want to play college basketball. And that's one of the things that I think is so cool, especially about the Northwest and even where you were, the Midwest, with those D3 leagues. There's a ton of other places that you can play other than Division I, that actually you can get some money, maybe not all of it paid for, but some money to help you play, pay for your college and have an amazing experience. What advice do you give to parents as they're helping their kid navigate this process?
Well, I give this advice weekly, maybe more, to my wife, is our stepdaughter's doing club volleyball, which is just a really expensive deal. There's no other way to say it.
Yeah,
And there's
it's
all
a
the
money grab.
parents, everybody's like wrapped around the exposure and what we need to be doing. And it's like, if you're doing this, like, if the college scholarship and that money is so important to get your college education, it is not worth it. It's not worth it. If you're doing it because it's fun and you enjoy the road trips and the family loves going and your teammates are great and your coach is great and you have the means to afford it, then it's worthwhile. But don't go into that club situation thinking that's what's um, going to make the difference. Like, coaches get out, and it's really, for the Division I level, it is a little bit genetic lottery. Like, nobody wants to hear that, but it's a lot like music. Like, you go to Nashville and you're walking through your Hilton and you hear one of the best people you've ever heard jamming out in the lobby of the Hilton, and you're like, gosh, it must be hard to make it in music if this guy is playing for tips at the Hilton. And it's the same
That's
thing
right.
with basketball. You go to a JUCO game and you're like, man, it must be hard to make it if these guys are playing JUCO. And not for us, because we know and we've been around our whole lives. But I think with the parent thing, there's just no idea how good the levels are. And I think probably one thing you can really help yourself with is going to all the small college games and going to all the levels and understanding what the level looks like. Does your 6'1" Johnny, who's the hardest worker and the best kid and shoots the ball? I saw him make 98 straight threes one night. Does he look more like a guard on the University of Oregon, a guard at Lane Community College, a guard at Willamette University, or a guard at Southern Oregon? Like, or Portland State. And a lot of times they don't even know what the guards look like at that level. They don't know that, oh, our guard is a 6'6", you know, just like little Johnny,
Yeah.
and the greatest kid in the world and a hard worker, So it's like, you don't really know your competition. It's easy to, you know, um, you just don't know. You don't know what you're getting to. So
I think it's
I advise that a lot.
I think it's great, man. And it's good basketball. Like, if your son or daughter is not being recruited at the level that the highest level, and they want to play college basketball, go watch a local small college basketball game. It's good basketball, and you're going to see, exactly as you said, you're going to see it's like more looking in the mirror or they're going to be so good, and you're going to look at it and you're going to say, there's no chance my kid can even play at this level, right? Like, there's some truth serum in going and watching that level play.
Oh, I remember when I did my AU experience and kind of ran a program in Phoenix. I remember telling a parent, and I hadn't been on that side of recruiting, so I wasn't I mean, I would phrase it differently now, but I was like, oh no, I like the kid a lot. I'm like, he's a really good player. I think would be really good in a mid-level D3 conference. And it was so insulting, and they were so mad at me. And I was like confused because I'm like, no, that's a compliment. Like I've been at a low level D3 conference. And I've been at a high national level D3 conference. Like I know Division 3, and I know where your kid sits. Well, anyway, a year and a half later, like the parents were really great. They just initially you can't help the shock when you got the daddy mommy glasses on, and you're
That's
like,
right.
I can't play in Northern Arizona. Like, oh man, that's a small college, you know. And a year later, he went to a really good D3, a really good mid-level basketball D3, and played 4 years and met his wife and got his degree and got married. But there is that initial shock of like, oh, and the difference in players, it's not as much as people think.
No, it's not.
I always say the difference is not on the individual player as much, but if your team is really close to mine, but all 5 of your players are just a little bit better, you're 25 points better than me.
That's right.
Like that's the reality of it. If all 5 are better, and that's more what you run into in Division 1. I think we have 6 or 7 guys having success out of our conference, um, at the Division 1 level from
That have
last year.
transferred.
Yeah, the transfer up, and that's
Is
kind of
that
another
happening?
interesting.
Is that happening now? People using NAIA and small college leagues for
Oh,
I know the whole
100%.
Chambliss thing with D2 and getting to Ole Miss from football.
Oh, 100%. We're getting poached like crazy.
No
We're like,
kidding.
yeah, oh, yeah. Like, I'm not exaggerating. I can, off my top of my head, I can think of 6 players, and I'm probably missing some that left the league last year and are at Division 1. So, like, our top players are really, really close to Division 1 players. And some coaches, it just makes a lot of sense to go for the unentitled NAIA kid that's a senior who's ridden in vans and eaten Subway for 4 years, and all he's done is won. That kid goes to a low major and is like, oh, this is awesome. Like, this is my dream. Versus you take the talented kid who couldn't make it at Washington State, just throwing random schools out there, couldn't make it at Washington State, and is, oh, this sucks.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's pretty kind of makes sense, to
Yeah.
go get the best D2 at NAI guys. OIT's point guard Jameson Guerra started all year at Idaho State and is one of their best players. And um, I could go on naming them because it's that
Yeah.
And then
It's
I would like Jake O'Neal. I watched him go get 10 rebounds against UCLA and 11 against ASU, and I was like, God, I feel kind of bad yelling at my guys about how soft
keep
they
that
are
guy off the
blocking
glass.
that. Like Cronin can't block him out with 6'10" guys. Like, why am I being so hard on myself that we can't block him out with other 6'5" guys?
That's awesome. There's no doubt the landscape in the world has changed. I think a lot of it, most of it, is for the better. They got to get some guardrails around it, but it's certainly good for kids and more opportunity. Be interesting to see the long-term impact that it has on mobility, on some of the lessons you learn from sticking with something for the long haul and persevering through a tougher situation. But that's a conversation maybe for another day. Let's dive into coaches real quick. So obviously, quite a journey for you to become a head coach. Young coach sitting out there listening right now, whether they're a high school coach wanting to be a college coach or a young assistant college coach. What advice do you give for being able to work your way up to a point where you want to be a head coach? And I don't think there's anything wrong with, and I think it's one of the great things about athletics. We all know when you're sitting in the top chair that the people below you want to get into a chair like yours, right? Like that's a cool thing. And there's not any, you shouldn't be intimidated by that or threatened by that. What advice do you give to young coaches trying to go through that journey?
Well, the first advice I always give them is you have to respect your competition, and you have to realize how few positions there are. So you look at the Oregon college coaching landscape, and if you look at head jobs, what are their, if you count the JUCO jobs, which are not really living
No.
stipend, living wages. There's like 7 head jobs, and you just take Oregon State off the table, Portland State off the table. I guess 9, 5, and plus the D. There's probably a couple more with the D3s. I'm not thinking.
I think you got probably 13 or 14, and if you throw the JUCOs in there, you'd have 20.
Yeah, but there probably are more brain surgeons in Oregon. There's probably more neurosurgeons in Oregon than there are.
There's more neurosurgeons at OHSU than there are college basketball coaches in the state.
Exactly. Yes. So that's what you're competing against. And then the other thing is just realizing how, and I think this is just good advice for life, just how hardworking everybody else is and how smart everyone else is and how competitive everyone else is. Like, you're not, I tell our guys all the time, like, we're really not special. Like, when you think you're special, and and a lot of people throw the word entitlement around, but that's really what it is. When you feel that like you're entitled because you're somehow special to it, you're gonna have a lot of trouble. So that's the first thing I say. The second thing is you got to know what it really is, and I was lucky. I played, and I was close to my coaches. I knew what it really looked like. I knew there was no, I wasn't over glamorizing the position when I got in, and I certainly wasn't over glamorizing the route that I knew it was going to take, because I had an experience with small college assistant coaches, and I knew how hard it was, and I knew how much work it was, and I know the like lonely nights of like, man, is this it? Is this is this gonna turn around for us? Like, I knew all that stuff, and I was older and more patient, more tactically patient. So I think you got to understand those two things first before you get into it.
Then, as you, one of the things that I look back on my journey and I think about how lucky I got. I got to work for Jimbo Tan, who we talked about in the last episode. Learned a ton about go get great players and you win, right? My first 2 years of coaching, we didn't lose a league game and won the conference tournament. We were 36-0 in league play in my first 2 years of coaching. And then I thought it was easy. It wasn't easy. Yeah. We just had better players than everybody else. And then I got to work for a guy named Gordy James, who is one of the most respected basketball coaches in the country. And then got to work for Coach Mack at Southern Oregon University, who's one of the most innovative people that I've ever met in turning around programs and making money work. And then I worked for Elaine Elliott, who's a Hall of Famer at the University of Utah and had 25 straight 20+ win seasons or some crazy number like that at the Division I level. And so I don't know if luck was the right place, but I put myself in good spots with a combination of luck and who I knew to get the next job and be trained and get a good depth and breadth of how to run a program. How important do you think choosing the next job is, taking the next job, finding your a place where you're going to get a different role, all of that kind of stuff is to the growth of becoming a kind of whole and well-balanced coach?
Yeah, well, first off, I think luck is exactly the word. I mean, hard work and being smart, or those are givens. Like, you can't even get in the conversation without those. And then it does take luck to get. I don't for a second think, oh, I always got the GA at Oregon because I was a harder worker and a better basketball coach than every other person that didn't get that job. It's luck. But as far as selecting jobs and what the next path is, it's either the most important thing or it's not important at all. And it just depends on what your circumstance is. If, you get caught at the end of the year, and at our level, it's like, it's not the same as Division I where you're going to get fired because you're losing. At our level, it's more, the school cuts athletics. A lot of small colleges are going through that out here, or something crazy happens at the end of the year you can't really control. You need to get an opportunity. But I think as you get forward in the business, you really, especially as an assistant, because you're deciding what culture you're going to learn under, who your circle is going to be. I mean, those first positions are really important, but they're also so hard to get that you don't have a lot of control over what you're, what you really have available to you. So if you are lucky enough to have a couple options, yes, you have to put a lot of thought into weighing what your values are, what you can afford financially and emotionally, what your family can afford financially and emotionally.
Yeah, I was fortunate enough, and I mean fortunate enough. At one point in time, I was the youngest head coach at the top level in the country, and people ask me all the time how that happened, and my answer was, well, you got to have some talent, you got to work hard, and then you got to get really, really lucky. And that whole luck thing, and the harder you work, the luckier you do seem to get. But luck comes from putting yourself in the right situations as often as you possibly can, working really hard, keeping your head down, and doing a great job, and hopefully somebody notices, right? Those are all things but there's a lot of talented people and there's a lot of hard workers that don't ever get the opportunity that I got because someone happened to watch a team that I was coaching in Arizona and followed me out to a van and offered me a job in the parking lot in the van, outside my van in Arizona. Like that it doesn't happen very often, right? Like just getting lucky and being at the right place at the right time, but putting yourself in that right place so that luck can happen is critical.
Definitely. I mean, that's why I say that's given. So I don't focus on that given part. I focus on the other part of it.
Yeah, I love it. So let's go backwards. We talk a lot about on this on one of the things we're trying to impact is the student athlete journey and going through a process to get to that final level, right? I am youth sports being it's a $40 billion industry now in our country. It is a standalone $40 billion industry. It used to be that youth sports required the top level to really need them. Now it just stands alone on its own, and private equity is involved and huge money in youth sports. Specialization has become a big topic of conversation that you have to specialize when you're in the third grade if you want to be make it to play in college and whatever sport it is. And I might be stubbing my own toe here right now, but of your guys on your team, how many of them were multi-sport athletes? And how important was that for you in your journey as an athlete? Because you played 2 in college, actually 3 with running track as well. But how important is being a multi-sport athlete to that journey going through the process?
So like I said, this is so real to me in my life. Between kids and stepkids, we have 5. My wife and I have 5, and so we've just been through all of this, and it's changed so much. Like you said, when I was in school, all my youth coaches, they were the high school coach that made the 35,000, that loved the community and loved winning, and gave me a million lessons for free. Just because
Yeah.
that's what you did. That's what you did. You cared about the community, and now it's become capitalized, monetized, and it's not like that anymore. And I probably just sound old and nostalgic, but it's the truth. As far as the multi-sport question, and I'm saying this going through it with our young second youngest daughter, is that I think it's almost impossible not to specialize. Like it's almost impossible not to specialize. Like the way it's, depending on what your primary sport is. I think that if football is your primary sport, it's really easy to be a multi-sport athlete because you can miss all the basketball stuff and the football coach loves it. Like, oh, you're out doing more, and as long as you're getting in the weight room, it's good. But I think with like basketball, volleyball, it's almost impossible. We had I think 2 multi-sport athletes on our team, and I love those guys, and I'll definitely recruit them. Um, I don't think it chops off your ability to be successful at the college level at all. When I say it's impossible, I'm talking from a financial standpoint
Yeah.
and a time standpoint and just a conflict of like, oh, well, I'm missing for this and I'm missing for that. And it's really difficult. But if that's where I think the small high school experience can just be so beneficial for kids, to where you'll have coaches that'll make exceptions and know, oh, I know you're doing club basketball and you're gonna miss some track stuff. You just need the right situation. And again, a little bit of luck that you're in a situation where you can do that, or are you at a school where, the volleyball team is really good and the basketball team is terrible because the club volleyball got in at young level, got all the good athletes, and now the cult is rolling, or
Yeah.
vice versa. Everybody got into basketball. It's like, oh, we don't play volleyball, because we've been doing club basketball and that's our sport.
Well, I think high school, at some point in time in high school, there is, if you're a college bound athlete and whatever your main sport is, cutting back on other sports that's the time to do it. But as a youth, second, third, fourth grade, nobody knows if you're going to be a college athlete at that age. And there's so many values, both physically and emotionally and just developmentally, that can happen both for your brain and your body from being involved in multiple sports in the second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh through eighth grade, that you don't have to specialize to be a college athlete starting in the second or third grade. It is it's a myth
Without a
that
doubt. From that age, there is no, all the science on that, you'll have less injuries down the road. You'll be a more balanced athlete. You're not, a lot of these fundamentals are going to change anyway after you reach puberty and your body changes and grows. There's absolutely no reason to be specializing, at a young age. What
yeah,
I was thinking more, I think seventh and eighth, there's actually a lot of external pressure, though, more than what people
totally.
think, to specialize. And that's where it starts getting hard, at least with my own, family. Like it's been hard that seventh or eighth grade years. And then of course, if you lose the seventh, eighth grade years, then it's too early.
Yeah.
They're not adults. They're not even close to adults.
Yeah. Well, and there is young people. There's so many valuable lessons from, learning how, if you're really good at basketball in the third or fourth grade, and then you go play a second sport that you haven't played before, it's going to give you a different role on your team. It's going to teach you different fundamentals. It's going to teach you how, when you do fail, how to go back and practice and get back up and work on the skills to put yourself back out there again and potentially fail again. And that, life is a series of failures, and learning how to bounce back from those. Just specializing early, you're gonna fail less because you're gonna become more skilled in the third or fourth grade. All you do is have one ball in your hand all the time. I think there's just so much lost, for the student athlete, a lot gained for the club that gets kids to specialize because they're going to make more money if you pay them year round, but a lot lost for the young student athlete if they go down that track as a very young person.
Well, the idea that if I spend enough money and get enough lessons and my kid gets good enough at this Euro step fading combo, then he'll end up Division 1. I can't tell you how untrue that is. Like, you need the genetic lottery, and you need, um, the character, and then you need, lastly, then you need the skills, and those skills can actually be picked up faster than you think when your body is grown and you actually do decide. Plus the burnout rate. We went through it with my son. He played hockey, and hockey, just the way it's set up, there's no choice. And it's like, now it's like tough to decide, like, how do I want to play in college? Like, I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, it's
Yeah.
very real when you've been pushing that hard and you've done everything right, and you've been, he's been the best player on teams, and then he's been the worst player on the very best teams, to try to get him to the right level. And it's just, I don't think his experience was nearly as fun athletically as what mine was.
Yeah. Well, what's next for Matt Zosel and the Southern Oregon University Raiders? How many games you got left in the season?
So we have 3 more left in the conference tournament.
3
So
left conference tournament, and then
hopefully a few more games, but hopefully about 8 games, 9
and the
games left.
NAI now is back to one level, right? So it had
Yep.
split into 2 levels for many years, and now
Yeah.
back to one level. Where's your national tournament?
It's in, so the first 2 rounds is like the NCAA women's tournament used to be, where pods were hosted the first 2 rounds, and then you go to, and then we go to a final site. So it is different in that respect, but we go to Kansas City.
it's back in Kansas City where it was back in the when it was all one level.
Historic Kemper Arena. It's just a super cool event.
Yeah.
Sure.
Well, Matt, I sure appreciate you coming on the show, man. Both of these episodes that we did, super valuable. And I think when your season's over and it's all done, I'm going to have you back on and talk about, maybe we'll talk some politics and religion. I know they're two of your favorite conversations. And for that, we didn't really talk about this at all, but Matt and you and I were roommates for 1 year while you were at Willamette University. That's what happens at D3. Gordy's retired now, so I don't know if he can get fired for promoting that. But you and I living together, there's a lot of things we could discuss that might not have to do with the journey that Southern Oregon University is on and the student athlete experience that might be fun for people to hear.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, it's life. One thing I know about life is that you can think you have some idea, it is going to turn out completely different. At least for me and the people I'm around, it turns out a lot different than you think it's going to turn out.
Well, as you know, I'm a big dad joke fan. You did some knock knocks for me the last time, so we're going to end the show with me telling you a dad joke, and I'm just going to open this book up. Oh, this is a great one. I got two on this page that I'm going to tell you. What starts with a T, ends with a T, and is full of tea?
I don't know.
A teapot.
That makes a lot of sense.
Oh, okay. This is fantastic. You don't need to answer this, but being a parent means knowing how to unwrap a candy bar without making any noise. And now that I have a teenage son, that is the key to every item of food that I have in my house.
Food gets consumed.
Well, Matt, thanks so much for coming on, man. I really appreciate it. It's been a pleasure. Your journey is pretty remarkable. As many people as I coached over the course of my life, I don't know that anybody has had the journey that you've had. It's pretty cool to have you on the show.
Well, thanks a lot. I appreciate you, and it was awesome watching your journey as well. You know, we've known each other way back.
It goes a long time, man.
Kids on the coast,
That's right.
You know,
all right, man. Best of luck to you. Appreciate you.
Thanks, Anthony.
Welcome back in. Anthony Leverett's here, host of the Next Pitch podcast, and just finished up part 2 of my interview with Matt Zosel, the head coach at Southern Oregon University, men's basketball coach at Southern Oregon. Great dude, super smart, right in the thick of it, really tired. Tells us kind of the story of what's happening right now in the middle of their season, and super grateful that he came on to chat today with us. Really, really, really good stuff. And a few things I want to touch on. And I've heard some really great stuff about leadership over the last couple of interviews. Ryan DePaulo had a great thought process about coaching and leading. And Matt talked about the Army's approach of doing it with purpose, direction, and motivation to bring a group of people together to achieve an outcome. And I just think it's a great way to think about young people having a plan, a purpose, and a direction for them, and motivating them to that purpose and direction. If you can identify what that purpose and direction is for them and motivate them to achieve that, that is what coaching and leadership is all about. And then I want to talk here today about the recruiting process for student athletes that may not be Division I athletics level. Really, really important to know that there is a place for a lot of kids to play that you don't watch on TV. Still an amazing experience. And the way to go about getting your kids seen is, number one, send an email yourself. Don't have a recruiting service do it. There are so many of those out there that they end up getting thrown into a junk mail. And it's not that they're bad. There's just that coaches get inundated with that stuff. And you can do that, but also send your own email to the coach with a full game and your schedule. and make it your best game. Do not send a highlight video. Send a full game. Make it your best game so that coach can watch you in the full environment of how you play. And really do your research before you send that film. Find 5, 6, 7, 8 schools that you might be interested in, that have the degree programs that you might be interested in, a part of the country that you would like to live in and go to school, and then intentionally send those emails, and then follow up after you've sent it and ask them if they've watched that. And then they're going to ask you to come visit their campus. They'll either come watch you play first, but eventually they're going to want you to come to their campus and go play with their guys, with their gals in an open gym, which you can do at that level. Do that as much as you possibly can. And then as you're preparing for that, and if you're not sure if you're that level, go watch a game in your area. Go find the local NAI, D3s, junior colleges in your area, and go watch a game and really try to see if that is a good fit for you. If you think you can play at that level, go see what that looks like, and then go do that process that I just mentioned. Do your research, send a film with an email from you, full game, and your schedule, hoping that they can come see you play, and then go to their campus, integrate into their day, go play with their team, and see if it's something that is a good fit for you. And it's going to give them an opportunity to evaluate you in a different way than the Division I schools do that. If you have any questions about that, I'm easy to find. If you're a parent out there and you have some questions about recruiting, hit me up on LinkedIn. I'm happy to have conversations about that stuff and give you a little bit deeper advice. But that would be my plan for young student athletes that want to play in college and may not be a Division I athlete. Hope you're enjoying the show. As always, if you like what we're doing, share this with a friend and share the word and see if we can impact as many young people on their journey through athletics as possible. Until next time, make it a great week.